When I started journaling, I was journaling in my native language, but with time I started writing in English. How did I do that? This is that story. If you want to see the first part of story time, how I got into journaling, then click somewhere on the screen and have a look at that first. How did I start journaling in English? This is story time part 2. I arrived for university in Canterbury in the UK on the 12th of September 2007. I was just turned 19 years of age and I came to the UK to pursue a degree adjacent to my love for theatre, which was in film and media. Now, for a reason I can't recall so many years later, I stopped journaling by hand when I came to this country. The only reason I can put it down to is the monumental change of moving countries. For a reason I also can't recall, in December of 2007, so only a few months after arriving here, I started journaling, not by hand, but digitally. Perhaps it had something to do with my degree and studying the digital, a fascination, an interest that I picked up over a decade later with the PhD I am pursuing now. I started a blog, a WordPress, and that is how I journaled for the following few years. Shall we have a look? So the first blog post is from the 10th of December of 2007 and it literally is entitled Why Blog? In this first posting I realised I did not write anything since I got to the UK. Actually, since I started a new life away from my native country, away from my childhood and also from how everything used to be. In this post, I reflect on the fact that I used to write daily. I was writing by hand in nice notebooks from a tea place in the bookshop that still exists today, that I still visit when I go today. And I still write in very beautiful notebooks. I used to go there for a tea and for reading a book, for writing memories on paper. I also reflect on how loneliness is another reason why I created this blog. This is where you see how I'm addressing the person that I know is reading. Don't get me wrong, I would never write that in a journal these days because it's just for me. There are those moments when people around me have to go to work or to uni or they have boyfriends or girlfriends or stuff to do. Moments in which I am just alone with my thoughts, with my life purely as it is. I'm not alone, there's a world around me that lives the way I do. But my choice was to leave. So here I am building a new life that already walks on its own 2 feet. I probably meant stand on its own 2 feet. You should know the hardest thing is to leave home, to leave your country. Stay alone in your room and have the guts to write your thoughts on a blog. I'm not writing for the people around me, I'm doing it for myself. I do it because it's the only way to put my thoughts in the right order. It's the only way to take care of my soul, to get out the sadness, the fury, or the happiness. Well, so much to unpack. I obviously knew I was writing for someone else. From the get-go, I had this eagerness to write which was there. It was right in me. It needed to come out. And that's something that has stayed with me, and I still feel it to this day. But the medium I chose is interesting because I'm writing publicly. So although I say I'm not writing for other people, I'm writing for myself, I was not mature enough at the time to realize that the experience of writing just for yourself is very different than writing so publicly. That's how I started writing in English. The first few posts were not actually in English. They were in my native language because that's how I knew how to write. That's what came naturally to me. However, my friends I was making in the UK have started to say, I can't read it. So I then went back all the way to the beginning and translated them all. And then going forward, I ensured that I wrote both in Romanian and in English. But interestingly, the exercise was me writing in my native language first. And that was juxtaposed with me writing in English first for university. That is actually what has developed my way of thinking, my ability to develop a vocabulary that I was comfortable enough to express myself in. Perhaps 2 years later, I began thinking in English. Now, 15 years later, I struggle to speak and think in my native language. I then carry on writing every month throughout 2008. I denote a sense of melancholy in myself. I am yearning for the theatre that I no longer got to practice. I am yearning for the music that made me feel. I am yearning for the places that made me feel myself. And interestingly, in 2010, when I was finishing uni, I did write every month up until May 2010. And then I don't come back until December of 2010. Reflecting, I haven't been posting since May because things were moving at a pace. And I reflect on the fact that I miss expressing myself. I miss that part of myself that I used to be as my life was getting established here in the UK. Those things felt further and further away from how I used to be and who I used to be. I have a couple of stints in 2011 and one in 2012. I come back in 2012 writing only in English. On the 16th of April 2012, I reflect on how I used to write about my life and feelings an awful lot when I was a teen. I carried on when I moved to England, but I don't know why I just stopped. I guess life takes over the things you enjoy so much once you become an adult with responsibilities and tasks you have to carry. I then come back in January of 2013 with a memory, and then in July 2017, for some reason, reflecting on Chester's loss. So from the first time since Chester's loss has been announced, I managed to press the play button to songs which haven't tickled my ears in years. That music was my childhood. And then I stop. In July of 2017, I stop. Now, this journaling, of course, was and felt very different. Firstly, because it wasn't handwritten, it was typed. Most importantly, though, it was different because it was public. I was not simply writing just for myself. I was writing for an audience. And although I might have not realized that at the time, the experience of journaling in a public sphere is very different to writing just for yourself. Think about it. I was saying things to someone. I was conscious that people were reading it. I knew that people were engaging with it because they were commenting, because of the analytics that told me people checked in regularly. It was the era of the blog. So at that time, it was what people were doing and people were engaging with it. Evidently, me knowing that there was an audience meant that I wasn't writing freely, entirely freely just for myself. And the way the blog posts are written, I am constantly addressing the other, the audience, whoever that is. So that's how I started journaling in English. Now, I stopped for a few years. So what happened next? What was such a monumental change in my life that I decided to pick up journaling again and journal daily ever since.